work in a prison where your father was housed? What if I told you that this same nurse practitioner was inspired by the Dylan Roof incident? Yeah, I went deep into the vault to share this conversation that I had with a nurse practitioner that works inside of a prison. And I want to share it with you all. Now, like I said, this is deep in the vault, so don't you judge my setup. Just make sure you pay attention to the critical information that she shares with us. Come check it out. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to The Human Side with Officer Jill. Like I said, I went deep into the vault to share this conversation with you. Let's get into it. Dr. Crystal, how are you doing today, ma'am?
I am doing great. It's Friday, and I have the opportunity to be here on your podcast. So it is an honor. Thank you so much for
Yes,
inviting me.
absolutely. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I am really passionate about trying to rebuild the relationship between law enforcement and the community.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I think it can happen is through impactful conversations.
Mm.
And I don't just say that from just throwing it out there. I know that from personal experience. I've had many conversations with people where not only has their perspective changed, my perspective has changed.
Mm.
And even more than that, more respect is developed. And usually when you can develop, at least have that respect, it's easier to work together in partnership.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We'll get started. We'd love to hear your perspective on a couple of things, and we'll run through the show and we'll give you an opportunity to ask me some questions because
Okay.
I do know that people have a lot of questions to ask the police.
Yes.
Surprisingly. It's not really surprising though, honestly.
Yes, it's definitely a profession that is challenging. So it's like important to get inside you all's mindset and to see how we can improve relations when it comes to the community, especially with things that have happened over these past couple of years. So this is definitely needed for sure.
Absolutely. And listen, don't hold back.
Uh,
I'm not soft. I
no.
want to hear it. I want to hear it. I want to know one, I can do better. And hopefully
Mhm.
I can take this information to my coworkers. And obviously, we're on a social platform. People
Yeah.
can view it and we can all learn together. So
Yes.
don't let us have it. First question. Okay. So, from your perspective, what does an ideal relationship between the police and the community look like?
That's a really good question. I think an ideal relationship would be one of trust. Because I feel like over the past couple of years, we've had a disruption in trust for a variety of reasons. And it's important that we can be able to have that transparent conversation like what we're doing today and to be able to build trust without having any stigma involved. For instance, if you sometimes when people see the police, they're already getting their defenses up instead of seeing the police as a way to not only better the community, but also to be a partner with you as we are continuing to protect our communities and encourage each other in, as far as justice. But just seeing that transparent relationship and that trust, that's what will be needed. And it's going to be hard to do at times because of the things that we see in the media. So if it'd be great if we can show opportunities where the police are coming in, collaborating with people in the community in everyday lives. I think that would be critical in helping change that narrative that we've been seeing recently in the news.
Yes, I love that. And I agree. And just some of the things that we talk about at work too is because we know some of the positive things that are going on.
Mm,
And unfortunately, the media doesn't doesn't always share those things. Yeah. So it makes it a little difficult.
yeah. But we have social media to help us with those
Yeah.
endeavors. I think it takes intentionality
Yeah.
to show that positive side. And unfortunately, most of the things that we see, whether we're talking about the police or we're talking about healthcare, anything is mostly negative. So we've got to flip that information and be able to encourage our community with these positive stories, lifting up our voice, allowing our officers to give back and to be empowered to speak, as well as encouraging our people in the community to share their voice when they're able to see something positive that a corrections or police officer is doing. Let's not be silent on that. We need to hear your voice. So sometimes I think people don't understand the value of something like this, even a podcast like this, using your voice to talk, using your voice to encourage, using your voice to unite is what we need in our.
I absolutely agree with you. I am seeing, I guess within my department, we are trying to do those kind of things where we're using social media as a tool to showcase some of the things that we're doing in hopes that people can have that or see that human side, what I
Mhm.
said, the human side of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. Let me ask you this. How can the community contribute?
I think that goes back to what I was referencing with regarding your voice, using your voice. We have a town hall meeting scheduled with our councilman coming up in the next couple of weeks. Our city of Mobile, they also have a program, and I can't think of the title, but it's a program where people can meet up with correctional officers and they can have a kind of another town hall meeting in a sense to discuss things that are going on with the city and be able to have that conversation. So unfortunately, you don't have a big turnout for things like this. Sometimes it's because people don't know about it,
Yeah.
or sometimes people feel maybe they don't have their credentials or whatnot to say what they need to say. But that's when we need you to come out to these town hall meetings. It doesn't matter if you are in the political spectrum or not, or if you're in corrections or not, or if you're a teacher, whatnot. It doesn't matter. It's these are the opportunities where we need people from all over the community to come to these town hall meetings and be able to voice their concerns, but feel that is welcomed. And I know that at times when I've spoken out on things, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes
Absolutely.
also time. And if you're dealing with things that are going on personally, you may not have the time or feel like you have the time to go out and be an advocate for your particular environment. But that's what we need. We need people
Mhm.
to stop and be that good Samaritan. I know you're on your way to work, or I know you're on your way to things with your family, but when it comes to that story about the Good Samaritan, for those who may have heard of it, but it consisted of someone taking the time out to help someone that
Right.
was in need. And so that may be somewhat time consuming, but it's necessary if we want to see the change to occur. It's necessary in order for us to share our personal experiences and how we may have a solution to a problem that others may not know because we're not opening our mouths
Yes.
to share it. So once again, I think it's critical that people know about these meetings that are available, making sure that the organizations police departments, Department of Corrections, because that's where I'm working in specifically, get the dates out there and have the language portrayed to the community that you are needed, you are
Right.
welcome, we want you to come, we want to hear you, and your feedback is valued and will be
Mhm.
heard. Not just heard, but acted on as
Right.
well. We don't want to just hear people just talk or vent and be
Right.
angry. We want to come up with
Yeah.
a solution. And some of that is in the people that are on the grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned something. You said courage, right? It takes a lot of courage, I think, on both sides. As far as the community, you can only speak for your experience. Do you think fear plays a role when these type of events that may come out or people don't attend? Do you think that plays a role?
Oh, absolutely. I
Mm.
do think fear plays a role because of the situations that we've had where whether it's because of when people have voiced their opinion, they were ignored, or when people have voiced their opinion, they felt like they were going to be ridiculed or they were going to be retaliated against. I know I have spoken out in my setting and corrections and have advocated for my patients. And there were times that I had some negative feedback from the people that are higher up for me, but I saw a need, especially when it comes to substance abuse in the prison setting and how we were doing different protocols that were setting our patients up for what I feel was failure. Now, if you're
Mhm.
exposing them, someone that's already having addiction, and you continually put them in an environment where it's all around them, it's feeding their addiction that
Mhm.
they don't have a way to block the triggers, you're setting that person up for failure instead of giving them the solutions to help conquer that. But I was
Mhm.
able to voice my opinion about how had needed to change a protocol as far as sending certain people with a addiction at this particular site that didn't have health care 7 days a week. And I had some kickback from that, but I
Yeah.
had to have the courage to speak up, and it was fear, and there was, in a sense, a somewhat retaliation coming from that, but at the end of the day, it did prevent the policy that they had from being continued. It got
That's
reversed,
good.
and the patients were able to stay, the ones that were more at risk of continual substance abuse without having healthcare to administer Narcan, those patients were sent up to the main prison site where they would have 24-hour nursing care to help them in the event that they succumb to that addiction. But yes, fear, and sometimes it's hard when you're a leader and you realize that there may be some consequences that are unfavorable that may come from me speaking up. But
Yeah.
when you know in your spirit that by speaking up it could change a life, it could save a life, that could be the very reason that you still will conquer the fear. And action conquers fear. So yes, there is
Absolutely.
fear, and there's also, like I said, insecurities. And that's speaking on a personal level. It's like I'm not an officer. I'm not an administration up higher in the Department of Corrections for Alabama. I'm a nurse practitioner,
Right.
and sometimes do I really have the authority to even speak? But when you see
Mm.
something, if you see something,
It's
that's what I'm
something. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so if
For
you
sure.
see that
Yeah.
there's an issue and that something isn't working, not just to say that, "Oh, hey, this is not working, let me complain about," but I'm really trying to find a solution to it. But sometimes the insecurities get in the way when we feel like we're just lay people. Like, if you're
Hmm.
in the community and you see a group of teenagers that are, been out of school for what night, they're
Hmm.
supposed to be in school, and that they're getting into trouble, and you wanna say something, but you don't know how. That's part of that insecurities that can get in the way. But when you just show that compassion and that concern in a loving way, where there's a will, I believe where there's a will, there's a way we can come up with a solution if we collaborate. Because there's a
Yeah.
strength that you may have and there's a strength that I may have, but
Hmm.
our weaknesses, my weakness may be your strength. Forgetting about our insecurities, at least speaking up and having the mindset that if we come together, we're better together, we're united together, and we can form a solution despite our fear, despite our insecurities.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, like we shared earlier, you work in corrections. So it's a little different, right? Than actually, I don't know how it works in Alabama. I would
Yeah.
assume that the correction officers are not going to be the same officers, or are they the same officers that actually work patrol as well? And they just have a time that they spend in the jail system there?
The time that they spend in the prison setting,
In the
so
prisons, yes.
they're in their dorms, in their
Mhm.
residencies. Some of the correction officers will escort them off-site, they have an
Mhm.
appointment off-site, they gotta go to the
Okay.
hospital or gotta go to a specialist, they'll escort them as well, but they're the ones that are really seeing how our patients are, or I should say inmates, because that's the terminology that you would
Yeah.
most likely use, but me being a
Right.
healthcare professional, I'm saying patients, but our
Yes.
inmates are living on that day-to-day basis, what they're struggling with outside of the healthcare unit, and I've had some conversations with amazing correctional officers that have ideas that could really shape the aspect of corrections. When you think of corrections, it says in it that correction, not correcting just their behavior, but the whole person, right? There are
Right.
officers that if they would be asked or their perspective inquired upon, I feel like some of them have the solution because they're able to see what the inmates are struggling with
Mhm.
daily. I can't see that. I don't see how they're living in their dorms, but once again goes back to seeing that the people on the grounds could possibly have the answer, whether that environment or community is a dorm or prison population, or it could be the
Mhm.
community out in the free world. The people on the grounds that are seeing the struggles of individuals on a day-to-day basis may have the solutions, but if we got to give them the empowerment to speak up and know that they will be appreciated if they do speak up and give their insight on it. So,
Yes. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. My hopes is to not only have people get the information and experience the conversations that I have with people, but also
mhm,
to empower other people to do the same thing. You know
right.
what I mean? Whether it's community members or other officers, wherever that is. So I think that's awesome. I ask that because I know every state is different, right? I
Yeah.
know here in LA we have the sheriffs where they do both. They patrol the streets, but they also man our the jail here, the prison here. Whereas my department, we don't have an extended prison, right? We just
Mm,
have a kind of a holding facility for a couple of days and then they go on to where the sheriffs are. So I was just curious as whether your correction officers is that their main job is working in the correction.
Yeah, our correction officers are
In the jail,
usually, in the prison
in
because 'cause I'm in
prison.
the prison.
Okay.
You have the prison, you can have jails or the detention centers, but in our prison setting, they are assigned to the dorms. There's different dorms, your F dorm, M dorm, whatnot. My main setting is a kind of a it's yeah, it's a different facility from the main prison. It's in the back of the campus, but
Mhm.
there's usually only one correctional officer. It would be great to have 3, but sometimes there's only
Yeah.
1, and I shouldn't say usually, but sometimes there's only 1 correctional officer for 200 inmates now
Yeah.
for that particular
Wow.
dorm, just about approximately 200 inmates. So imagine the stress that comes
Oh, for
upon
sure.
someone trying to manage all those individuals that have different personalities, that are struggling still with
Absolutely.
substances. Somehow they're getting access to that. It's a lot to put on someone, and so I know people in the community, they'll see things going on with the Department of Corrections, and they have their perspective, but we have some officers that really care, and they're doing the best they can with limited
But what they have.
manpower,
Yeah. Right.
and they really are putting their lives at stake. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just them,
Yeah.
and we are too because I'm in there with my nursing side and we're locked in a room, so if anything happens, it's gonna be a little time frame before
Yeah.
we can get a assistance to our
Absolutely.
facility, but we are putting our lives on the line
Yes.
because we care about what we do, and we want to be able to provide, for in my case, healthcare to that dorm, to that population, and in that officer's case or those officers' cases, they want to be able to do their job well, but it is definitely difficult when you are that short staffed and to be able to keep your eyes on everything for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't think
Yeah.
that the community truly understands
Yeah.
the risks that we're taking, but someone has to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? And I want to take this time to thank you because I think about it, but I don't think I've ever thought about it as deeply right now from
Mhm.
talking to you because we have nurses that are at our facility as well. And when we have an inmate or arrestee that we take to check in, have some type of medical condition, whether it's high
Mhm.
blood pressure to an injury, like a physical injury, open wound, whatever it is, and they're there 24/7. And you're right, we do the best we can to make them safe, but
Yeah.
there are times where they're never left alone, at least not when I'm taking them, but it's definitely possible that they can snap, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And attack you all. So I wanna thank you, like, for what you do.
Thank you. And you
We
too.
thank you. But for me, it's like, I know what I was getting into. It's almost like
Yeah.
I knew the dangers, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
as a nurse, it's slightly different. I guess when you signed up to work in a corrections, you know, too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't initially because this was 6 years ago, but my uncle did. My uncle was a former
Mm.
warden
Oh,
of
wow, okay.
prisons in Florida, and he was like, "No, don't take that job. They're gonna look at you." And anyway, and then a lot of people was like, "You're gonna take that job, and you're too nice, or you're not gonna last." But you do have
That's
to be tough,
interesting.
but you can still be
Yeah.
caring, yeah, for sure. But I've been 6 years strong, and it's definitely been rewarding for sure.
Yeah.
Being able to speak the life into a dark situation because prison is hard, it's challenging. These individuals have struggles, and
Yes.
it is
Yes.
important to not look as far as when it comes to healthcare, not look at anyone as a prisoner. I use patient a lot. They are a patient
Yeah.
in need of healing, and that's
Right.
what we're trying to do, but not just the patients or the prisoners. They're in need of healing. So do our officers, so do our correctional staff. We've got to make sure they are empowered too and that they are knowing about wellness because the connection between a healthy staff as and a healthy prisoner, it's related there. And so part of that, we are living as examples, healthcare and corrections officers. We should be the example to the people that we're trying to serve, prisoners, inmates, detainees. We want to be
Yeah.
examples of wellness, of compassion, of course, of stern. You're trying to help them get back on the right
Right.
track, but
Right.
they need to see us as servant leaders, despite
Yes.
what title you have,
Yeah.
detective, officer, nurse practitioner in corrections. We're servant leaders, and we're here to help you get back and be empowered to hopefully lead themselves
Yeah.
because that's what the struggle is. That's how
Right.
they of the individuals get where they get into this situation because they don't know how to lead themselves and because they've been exposed to some very challenging environmental triggers and environmental exposures that cause them to be in that environment.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's one of the things I enjoy about my job. People may not know that, but we have, and you as well, we have the opportunity to access people in one of their most difficult times,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not everyone, but some people are very accepting to that.
Mhm.
They'll listen to you at the very least, right? Not
Yeah.
everyone. And I know not everyone's going to respond that way, but I enjoy the opportunity of trying to speak life into people and
Yeah.
try to help them get out of whatever situation or whatever bad state or part of their life that they're in that has caused them to encounter me.
Yeah.
Chances are it's probably not a good thing if you're encountering me and you as well, because now you're arrested at that point.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
liberty, your freedom has been taken away for this a certain time frame. And so let me ask you, would you say that, or along the lines of why you wanted to take this position? Why we spoke about your uncle was a
Mm.
warden. Is there a particular reason? I don't know if it's the same reason that we were just talking about, but is there a particular reason why you chose to be a nurse practitioner in a prison setting?
To be honest, when I got the opportunity, which was through my neighbor, my mom's neighbor, I knew that I was supposed to take the position, despite
Mm,
what my uncle said. Back in 2015, I was in my former home and I was at my desk. There was a situation that happened in the news. It was regarding a young man that went into a church, and I'm not going to get into too much details. It was Dylan Roof was his name, and he went into a church and opened fire on church members that were having
mhm,
a Bible study. And of course, it caused an uproar with the community, with our nation. But the reaction of the family members, how they treated him, how they spoke about him,
mm,
it was so inspiring to me because they just lost a loved one. They lost
yeah.
dad, sister, mother. Anyway, they lost family, but they were able to still show love and wanted to speak life to this person that brought so much darkness. And it
Yeah.
was right after that scenario, that situation, should say, I heard God because I'm a faith-based person, so I don't know who's all in our audience here with the podcast, but
Mm,
I heard God tell me that you're going to work with men. What does that mean? I'm going to work with
mm,
men, but I didn't know men, boys. I didn't know what that meant at the time. So that was 2015, and that was right after that situation. And so I sat on that. And then when 2018 came around and the opportunity to work in a male prison, it was brought back to my mind in the forefront of my mind of what God had told me. And I knew that I'm supposed to take this job. I'm
mm,
supposed to be there. And I think part of it is because of my own personal upbringing. I work in one of the clinics, one of the facility where my father was a prisoner. So my
wow.
father was a prisoner of mobile work release. He actually was at the main prison that I work for as well, the big house we like to say, and he had struggles with alcohol use, and so he was
Mm,
incarcerated for DUIs. When he got out, he only lived about 5 years, 5 more years after he got out because he ended up passing away from a heart attack, but he also was diagnosed with cancer. But to make a long story short, I realized like during that time when he was in corrections, that was an opportunity for him to work on some of these things that kept tripping him up all his life: alcohol use, tobacco use, struggles that he'd had from childhood that he didn't really conquer when he was in that setting. And so he didn't get to have as long as life as I wish he could have
mm,
because he struggled with that and he didn't conquer those addictions. And it was even worse and even more challenging in corrections because everybody has something that they're struggling with and they need more opportunities to be empowered. But yeah, when I found out about the job, I knew that I needed to be there because I felt like I had a calling to hopefully help someone else's family member live longer through my efforts, through my
mm,
um,
yeah,
empowerment of them. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to the inmate what they choose to do with their life, with their body. But if there's
mhm,
someone advocating for them, giving them the tools to help self-lead themselves, then they may be able to live longer than my father did when he was living.
Wow, that's awesome. Sorry about your father. That's amazing though. I love that. And I think I have the same kind of desire. I'm also faith-based. When you feel like you got that calling, you gotta go,
Yeah,
right? It's something deep inside of you. It's hard to explain, but it's there.
yeah, and that's what gives me the courage to speak
Yeah.
out when I've seen some things happening and tried to change some systems there, and it's been successful. It's been, like I said, hard because some people look at me like, "Who are you?" I've had someone say, "Well, who are you again?" I said, "I'm the nurse practitioner,"
Right.
and he said, "Okay then." So I yeah, someone higher up,
Okay
high
then.
more education, basically, "Okay then, who are you to
Right.
speak?" But I am an advocate and I feel passionate because I'm also a family member, and
Absolutely.
that's they don't know the details, but I do, and somebody's
Mhm.
gotta speak up. When I say they, other, family members don't know the struggle firsthand because they may not be working in the
Mhm.
environment, but I do, so it's my obligation, and then as a nurse, ethically, I'm
Mhm.
supposed to be speaking up. We're the most trusted profession. So, when we see something, we're supposed to say something for
Yeah.
sure because we're
Yeah.
leaders in healthcare, the backbone of healthcare.
Absolutely. Listen, let me tell you just a little shout out. The nurses held us down, right? During
Yeah.
COVID.
Yes.
Nurses and doctors.
Yes,
But
yes.
listen, you guys are definitely were the front line, right?
Yeah.
And I know that was a difficult time for
Oh, it
everybody.
was, it
I'm so
was.
glad that's behind us,
Yeah, me
behind us
too.
for sure. That
Yes.
was a rough time. That was a rough time. Okay, let's get into some nitty-gritty questions. You cool
Okay.
with that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Black. I'm assuming you're also Black.
Yeah, I am. I think I'm Afro Latina
Okay,
sometimes. I get yeah, I can speak
okay,
Spanish, but
okay.
I'm not
All right, Afro
Latina.
Latina, Afro
Yeah.
Latina, I like that. So often have this conversation or ask this question to friends, family members, sometimes even community members, depending on the setting and how the conversation is going. But there's this question: do you think that only Black officers should patrol Black communities?
Do I think that only Black officers should patrol Black communities? No, I do
Hmm.
not, because I think there should be a partnership. I think it'd be helpful that an officer that's not African American have a partner that is African American just to build that help build that trust
Hmm.
because of the history of our
Yeah,
nation. But to only have African American officers patrol Black communities would not be helpful. It would not give the
right.
right, in my opinion, the right message of unity. That we are one blood. Doesn't matter how our skin color is. But I know that we've got to build trust back. And that's why I said I think it would be great to, yes, have a partnership there so that the officers are being examples, right? Or being
Hmm.
partners, they're communicating, they're trusting each other because you have to have trust to have a partner.
Absolutely,
The partner has to have your
absolutely.
back, right? So
Yes,
that
yes,
that gives the community an opportunity to see trust, faith in action, unity in action through having more than one officers patrolling their community and that look different than themselves.
yeah. Yeah, I get different responses to that. Some
Mm,
people just feel like only Black officers should be patrolling in Black communities because there's that connection and there is
yeah,
that trust.
yeah,
I don't agree. I agree with you. You know what I mean? It's contradicting, right?
yeah,
If we're trying to do this together, why are we separating?
yeah, and it goes back that's yeah,
Right?
that's like a form of segregation. So should we only have Black hospitals now? So, like we did back in, Jim Crow days? Like
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. My thoughts exactly. But it's always interesting to me because I get probably half and half on that response of people who think that only Black officers should patrol Black areas, which is
Hmm.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and that's their perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm for unity,
Yeah.
and I've said that several times
Yeah.
throughout our discussion. That's a big calling for me is to unite people, diverse people. But we have to still remember what's happened in our past in
Yes.
order to make sure that those things don't creep back up. Look for those red flags
Yes.
because we are all raised differently. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, some of that has been ingrained in the wrong in people of leadership. So we've got to look out for that, and we've got to change the patterns that are happening. And part of that is being examples when we are leading in our communities, whether that's an officer patrolling or a teacher teaching. We've got to be able to show collaboration and partnership between different individuals
Yes,
successfully.
absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I love that. Let's see. What else? I love that though. I always think it's interesting. I like to ask that question
Yeah.
to my brothers and sisters.
So my question to you, individuals that say yes, is it more males and females, or are there mostly African Americans that would say yes?
Both. I get males and females. I would say probably more males. And I
Uh-huh.
think the reason is, in my perspective, is that I do think that black males may have a more difficult time with police than black females.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where that comes from. A lot of that fear. But also in my experience, I've had a black male partner,
Mhm.
and working in a minority community, you don't always get just automatic compliance,
Yeah.
right? Just because you're black. And in fact, oftentimes you would get a lot of heckling, or I don't even say heckling, they'll call you a traitor and tell you you
Mm.
sold out, like you sold out
Mm.
to the man. We would get that. I wouldn't say all the time, but it wasn't like it never happened. It did
Yeah.
happen. And so that's why it's always interesting to me. Yeah. I think area geographic has something to do with it as well. I think maybe further south, and maybe you can speak to it. You're in Alabama.
Yeah.
You might have a little bit more just because I think segregation, those laws ran a little longer, a little stronger
Yeah.
on that side of the
Yeah.
country. But yeah, it's a mixture, I think, when I ask that question.
Yeah. But it's like me working in the prison setting, and the majority of my patients are African American,
Mm,
but do we have an all African American healthcare staff? No, we
right.
don't.
No.
And in fact, about a week or and a half ago, I had a patient that had just met him, but he already had a chip on his shoulder
Mm,
regarding me as a healthcare professional, whether that's because I was a female or African American female, and this was an African American male. But he wanted to speak to another healthcare professional of a different
mm,
race, whether that's because I'm a nurse practitioner, the other professional was the physician. But yeah, sometimes we run into opportunities where they will want to speak to the other healthcare
yeah.
professional because they are not of the same race. So that's why I said it all depends on the person, and you just have to be your authentic self. And
Right.
we have the training to respect the different cultures and show compassion, empathy to all people, despite
Mhm.
what they may think of us. We have the training, we know who we are. We know that we can go in any environment and we can shift the atmosphere if we are there for the right reasons, I should say.
Absolutely. 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 I agree. So let me ask you this one question, and then I'm gonna leave time for you to ask me any questions. I think
Okay.
that's important. Hopefully our listeners can see. And like always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you want to have this conversation with me, send me an email. I'll have my email on the bottom here and we can have this conversation as well. So, looking to the future, doctor, what's one change that you hope to see in the relationship between law enforcement and the community?
Mm.
We talked about it, but
Yes, I would love to see more conversations, respectful conversations with action behind it.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, not just talking, but incorporating some of the ideas that our officers may have, or some of our ideas that our lay people have, and merging the two. And with smart goals that go along with that. Smart goals meaning specific,
Yeah.
measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. So that's what we need to do. And not only that, I would love to see us really going back to individuals that have struggled and have been incarcerated, and those that got released, and don't know, and those that are still there, if we
Mhm.
could find a way to even ask for their voice to see what could we have done to
Mm.
prevent you from getting here.
Mm.
And you may not be getting out, you may have a life sentence, but they still have a purpose. If they
Right.
want to, they can go back in time and pull out where it was that got them to that spot and
Yeah.
give us that information to start working
Right.
on preventing the cycles from continuing. But that once again goes back to having conversations that are followed up with action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. I talk about and I think we all know this, and I think we all know this, but we still can't seem to change it, where we talk about the jails they're supposed to be for rehabilitation,
Yeah,
right? Supposed to be, right?
yeah,
Not always the case.
no.
Probably majority of the time,
Housing.
it's not the case. Exactly. Majority of the time, it's housing. And there's a whole conversation to be had with private prisons and the money that's involved in there. Whole conversation.
Whole
Whole
conversations.
conversation. But yeah, and I think that's great. And it's challenging, right? Because I think the first thought when the majority of people see someone that's in jail, and I think you mentioned it earlier, there's a not as much value,
Mm,
right, that is added to that person
yeah,
because they're in there. And unless you have an experience where you know someone, which I know for myself, I've had family members that have gone to jail and I know that they're good people. They
yeah,
made a bad
yeah,
decision. Whether it was 1, 2, 6, whatever, you know who they
yeah,
are outside of whatever crime they committed.
yeah.
And so because of that, they still have value. And because they still have value and
They
they're still
still have that.
alive,
Yeah.
yeah, they can still give us input. So I think that's awesome. I love that. And that would be great. I agree with that.
Mhm.
That'd be great if we can find a way to, I guess, create a system where also and on the flip side too, and I can say this from a law enforcement perspective, it's challenging also because some people know how to play that system,
Right. Yeah,
right?
that is true. Yes, some people know how to manipulate, and unfortunately, some do not want to change. People in our community don't want to change. So do some of our incarcerated individuals. But the majority of the ones that I've served truly want
Mhm,
to. And what
mhm.
just needs the tools to be empowered to help
Yeah,
themselves and to become better individuals for society. So, yes, I don't
yeah,
want it to be a housing thing. The
yeah.
wellness component of it definitely needs some work still. Wellness for our incarcerated individuals and wellness for administration, staff, healthcare workers in these settings. So it all starts with us. It starts with
Mhm.
making sure our mindset and recognizing if there's any bias that are present within ourselves, but also making sure that we are be taking care of ourselves so that we can have the capacity, the energy to conquer these major tasks and to have these difficult conversations. And
Yes. Oh gosh, yes.
yeah,
Oh gosh, yes. I am a huge advocate for wellness, and I
yeah,
make sure that I don't let this job deteriorate me. I love my job. I love what I do. I know, and it's hard, but I can't do it well if I'm not well. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I love that. So, listen, I would love to answer anything that you've ever wanted to ask an officer, whatever it is. Shoot it at me,
Mm.
and I'll do my best to answer it as honestly and true as I can. You got anything for me?
I do. I want to know what made you
Okay.
want to get into corrections,
Law enforcement,
law enforcement.
you know what? I've always had a desire. I think I was God created me this way to have a desire to help people.
Yeah,
But I can go back and recently I didn't. It's amazing when you really take time to think about things. I was actually being honored at a last year at Women's Month in March for what I was doing, and I was sitting at this community service event, and I saw the sheriff's department, the captain. He was speaking, and this the a memory came to me. I was in the 3rd grade, and I remember the DARE program. Remember
yeah.
the national DARE program?
Wow.
Yeah, no, I went way back. For those who don't know, look up the DARE program. It was the bomb, right? Just say
Yes.
no.
Yeah. Just say no.
Just say no. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Anywho, the sheriffs that came to my school for the DARE program, and I remember they had the police car there, and they asked, "Who wants to talk on the loudspeaker and play with the lights?" And I shot my hand up, and magically I was selected. And I remember sitting in that car, my feet dangling from the chair, and seeing all the cool stuff. And in that moment, I know that I'd fell in love with just policing. Period. Obviously, as I got older, that love grew with more information that I learned.
Yeah.
And I started to see the injustices. Initially, I wanted to be a judge.
Mhm.
I actually wanted to be a judge because
Judge
I
Jill.
exactly, Judge Jill. However, I looked at the schooling. I said, maybe we'll do something else. But no, I really, my passion was to serve people. I really do enjoy serving people. But
Mhm.
instead of complaining about the things that were going on, I
Yeah,
wanted to do something about it.
yeah.
And I truly felt that in my heart, that those same deputies that presented themselves in a positive light to me when I was in third grade, I knew
Mhm.
they still existed.
Yeah,
And so I wanted to be that, and I want to be an encouragement to other people. So yeah, that's the reasons why I became a police officer. And it to this day, the journey has been it was interesting. And I'll share that. You guys can see that later on another video where I
yeah,
share my journey because it wasn't smooth to say the least. But yeah, that's the reason why I joined
mm,
and I loved it. And it's definitely been an amazing ride. I've experienced so many things. And more than anything, having the opportunity, like I said, to help people in need,
yeah.
it does something to your soul. It
Mm.
does something to your
It
soul. So
does, it
I
does.
love it. I love it.
So
I love
my other question is, what was the most challenging encounter with an incarcerated individual that you've had?
it. You know what? I only spent a couple months, to be honest, in our jail system.
Mm,
So I didn't have a lot of experiences in, I guess, a detention setting. And for me, I would just have to say when you come across someone that when you get to know them a little bit,
mhm.
and you can sense that they are not the person that's being arrested for that crime, or there's more to them
Yeah,
than that crime, but they're in the system, right?
yeah,
You see their rap sheet, they've been arrested 10 times or whatever it is, but you get to know they tell you their story that hey, they were abused when they were a kid, they don't know who their dad is, mom is on drugs, and you hear this difficult life,
yeah,
right? And you're, man, this kid just never had a chance
yeah.
in a sense. And so those are hard because I'm just I don't say I'm an emotional person, but I connect with people. I love people. And
Mhm.
so when you see that in people and that they're just in a tough situation,
Yeah,
those are the hard ones for me. Those are hard to deal with. And you don't really have enough resources to help them, at least
mm,
not me personally. And so those to me, those are the hard ones.
yeah.
I would say those are the most challenging ones for sure.
And you just said it, we may not have the resources ourselves, like individually. We may have a resource or
Yeah.
2, meaning
Yeah.
there's certain gifts that we have that can empower that patient or inmate.
It's
It's
all
so
right.
hard for me sometimes, but
Yeah,
you
it's
all
all
know what
good.
I mean, but that's why it's critical that we come together and utilize our strengths, corrections, healthcare, education, if those in
Yeah.
education to give them skills that would work on skills while they're incarcerated. All these different disciplines, I should say, several that I didn't mention, come together and provide the strengths that we have to help make that person whole. Yeah, if they're desiring to be whole. Some people don't see the hope. But we
Yeah.
said we won't give up. We shouldn't give up.
No.
Speaking it and letting them know, "I you can be better. We're here to help," until one day, hopefully, it will we
Yeah.
turn that light on for
Yeah.
them and they'll receive it. Because some people can't receive
Yes.
that love or that care, and
Right.
we've gotta have the emotional
Yeah.
intelligence to not take that personal, but continue to serve. And the last thing I was gonna say in relation to what you had mentioned a couple of minutes ago, hurt people hurt.
Mhm.
Hurt people
Mhm.
hurt. So that's why despite how the community have a stigma against you as a law enforcement or me as a healthcare provider in the corrections setting, because sometimes they see us and they don't think that we're really for them, but we are. Right,
Right.
what they're showing us, that behavior, we have to make sure we don't have that hurt and we're coming in fully ready to pour out
Yeah.
and be there to help bridge this gap between corrections, law enforcement,
Yeah.
and our communities. That's what it's gonna take. Us filling up
Absolutely.
daily and showing the light to them daily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love those questions.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any more? Are you
I'm
if
good, but
not, you know
I'll probably be getting back with you because I Yeah, I love being able to talk to someone on the other side of this population, assisting this population.
Same here. Same here. I really appreciate your input. Like I said, I don't think I ever fully thought about the nurses and the physicians that work in our facilities because
Yeah,
it's a process, right? You just go, they go, you get checked out. You're going about your night or about your day, right?
yeah,
But you guys are very important and you serve a purpose and I'm thankful for it. It's yeah, like I said, I don't really think about it until probably till now. So thank you so
thank
much.
you.
I appreciate you coming on and having this conversation. I hope that our viewers learned something, enjoyed the conversation. Like I said, if you have any questions or any way that we can contact, if you want to get more information about Dr. Lockett Wilson, where can we reach you? Where can we find you, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, you can reach me. You can email me. My community email is klockett at thepurevinefoundation.org. I don't know if we can put that in the chat or
Yes, we'll put
whatnot.
that
So
in.
yes, that's where they can reach out to me there. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. That's something that we can connect if anyone wants to do any service or community work. Despite where you are, our
Mhm.
foundation, the Pure Vine Foundation, we unite people to promote wellness and to bear spiritual fruit in our communities. So that community consists of individuals from all over the world that are coming together if they are believing in unity and believing in wellness. So that's something that you can get involved with, the Pure Bound Foundation, if you're looking for a healthcare coach or provider, depending on where you are. I can be your provider. Some states are not open as yet as far as autonomy as a nurse
Yeah,
practitioner working,
yeah.
but depending on where you are, I can be your healthcare provider, but I can be your coach no matter where you are
Yes,
in the country. So I'm also a wellness coach. So I look forward to serving in this community, serving the prison setting for a long time coming to come, I should say. And this has been a great opportunity. And I thank you, Officer Jill, for allowing me to speak.
absolutely. It's been a pleasure having you. I've enjoyed this conversation. You guys will leave all the information for Dr. Lockett in the show notes. You guys can access that and you can reach out to her at your leisure. Get a coach. I wanted to
Yeah.
say that just when you said that. It's so I think we
Oh,
both
yeah.
know how beneficial it is to have a coach. And even for us, it may not be spoken about as much in our spaces, in our professional spaces,
Yeah.
but I think you would agree that a coach is huge to your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we should have that conversation maybe in
Yeah,
another if
for
possible,
sure.
the benefits of a coach and the
Absolutely.
benefits of peer coaching. They have peer
Yeah.
coaching in the prison setting, basically
Yes.
training some of our prisoners to coach.
Yes.
And so, that
Yeah.
would be great if we can have that
Oh, absolutely.
conversation about officers getting coached, correctional officers, law enforcement having a coach, while
Yes.
they're serving, as well as healthcare professionals.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's something I'm very passionate about as well. So yeah, we will definitely. So you guys come
Yeah.
back. Stay tuned. Keep that notification or turn that notification bell on so you can catch the next time that Dr. Lockett and I have our conversation. So once again, Doctor, I appreciate you coming. Wasn't that a great conversation? I want to thank Dr. Crystal Lockett for coming on and sharing that information and that insight with us. I appreciate it. If you guys have any comments, any questions, feel free to leave it in the description on the bottom of this video. If you like the conversation, give it a thumbs up or share it with a friend. As always, feel free to subscribe to the channel so you will always know when there are new episodes coming out. I appreciate you guys tuning in. But more than anything, you already know what I'm going to say. If you show me your human side, I'll show you mine. All right, y'all. Peace.